So I want to show you something. This is something funny, and I've been thinking about gifts, and a friend of mine who sort of lives down in the Santa Cruz Mountains and he's sort of turned his place into a kind of temple, and he's putting. He found a place with ancient olive trees, and people are rescuing ancient olive trees because some people want the land they're on for development or who knows, farming or something. And so, but these olive trees came here long ago. They came here with the Spanish in the 16th century, actually. Came to Peru, and then where the missions went, the they tend to hop north, but they might be in Chile. I don't know. Eduardo can tell us that in a minute. Are they in Chile, Eduardo?
Yes.
No, the ancient Sevillano olive trees. They got big fruit and they're all marvelous ancient beings. Thank you. It's good to have an expert on hand. and uh, and so anyway, they eventually got north to California by the 17th century or something. And some of them are still growing, and then these ancient beings. And because olives don't have a tap roots, then that's not you can lift them up and transport them if you've got a big enough truck and forklift and things. So he said, "Do you like olive trees?" And I said, "I just love olive trees." And in fact, we've planted a few on our place, a few young olive trees. And and he said, "How about I get you an ancient olive tree?" And so it's somewhere between 150 and 200 years old. And he said, "Do you have room for it?" And I said, "We will find a way." So it was great. So he sends me an ancient olive tree, and with this wild guy. And so I'm going to show you the tree, and it's sort of really an ancient being with like it's got like four different bowls and trunks and things like that. Can you see that? Nod. Yep. Thank you very much. And so it's kind of an amazing ancient being, and it's been shortened quite a lot, so it won't go over in the wind, and then probably for transport. But still, it's like being with chi, you know. So. And then I'll show you. Then there's a whole thing about, so naturally I looked up, there's a whole thing about ancient olive trees, and here's one, 3,000-year-old one from Crete. So that's really the mama of your olive trees. But you can tell ours is headed in the same direction, it's just got another couple of thousand years to go. So it's rather wonderful to be sharing life with this ancient being. And so, but then it was an adventure. And what came to me about gifts are an interesting part of life. When somebody just gives you a gift, and that life is a gift, and so just to accept it, it's a bit like just hearing the bell, and not wanting anything from it, not wanting it to mean something. It's just the bell. So like the flowers in spring, in front of the dead tree cliff, the flowers are always in bloom, like gifts. It's gifts all the way down. So, and my friend says, the guy who has the olive trees, he takes some getting used to. And so then I get this like text with a picture of an 18-foot long forklift. It's a tractor with a forklift on a cat, and the guy says, "So do you have one of these?" I said, "Well, I don't happen to have one lying around." "Oh, I'll have to rent one." So he rents one, and then I get a note saying, "Send your homeowner's insurance to this forklift rental place." And I said, "I can do that, but," and he said, "Endorse it. You get them endorsed." And I'm like, so I call my insurance agent, who says, "On what planet would I take responsibility for a rented forklift?" She's a very like earthy kind of person, loves the royal family. So anyway, that's her imaginative thing. But anyway, so she's very amused about, if he runs into your house, we'll repair the house, but we're not going to look after the forklift. Okay, so I tell him that, and well, it's going to cost all this extra money. And so I said, well, if it does, it does, But it turned out nothing. And so there's all these like things, do we need to get soil amendment? And then he asks some other strange question and so on. So anyway, he's got this negotiating style that's sort of very streety, and so if you ask a question, he jams you with another question. So it was kind of fun getting used to that, And so I said to my friend said, he's high strung, and I said, he makes everyone high strung. And then my friend said, it's a great thing. And he said, yeah, it's been a sort of practice in a way. He said, it's like waves keep falling on the sand, and they little particles of sand fly up and run around and wash out and come back, and the beach starts to worry it's not a beach. But in the end, the waves are just the waves, and the beach is still the beach. So it was like that whole way of how people can make you just start being crazy and fly apart. I thought it was rather fun. I said, oh, that's very wise. Thank you. I had to take out the fence and cut down big posts and things like that. And then we've got a guy standing on a ladder holding up the Wi-Fi wires so the tree can get on with a rake, so the tree can get underneath. And so we had the Wi-Fi wires, all the slack was taken up on this pole, and had to cut the tie and so on, but without harming the wires. So anyway, there's a lot of elaborate stuff, and then he gets ready to go in, and naturally the forklift bogs. And it's a huge thing. It's like, as I said, 18 foot long and weighs 10 tons or something. And so he would he'd push the tree ahead with his forks, which are hydraulic, then pull them back, and then we'd put boards under the forklift, and then he'd run over that, get up to the tree, lift it up again, bog, and then push it forward with his forklift. And so we're just pushing it forward and forward and forward. And it took, I don't know, over an hour to just get across the yard because it's been so wet and it was bogging. And I decided, oh, it's kind of fun. It might as well be fun, right? And the guy and I started getting along really well, and the couple of guys who work with us were great, very gracious about it. And everyone had been gracious with him. Suddenly he became gracious, so it was great. And so that's the thing about gifts. And I was thinking about, all the things about gifts. And I started thinking about the old. There's something kind of important about when somebody offers you a gift to say yes if you can, as long as you don't think there's barbed wire attached to it, And there's something rather wonderful because it's outside the usual ways we trade and do commerce and things like that. And I do something for you, so you'll do something for me, and things like that. And so there's something sort of free and open, and something. It's like the sound of the bell, a gift, and you're appreciated. And so with the tree, what else has been happening is that a couple of people just happened to email me and said, what have you been doing? And I sent them photos of the tree. And the two people notably were Nazneen and Michael Wilding. And and so they both sent me songs in response. And one was in Bangla and the other one was Michael's composition. And so I went out and played them to the tree. So I'm standing out there with my iPhone playing things to the tree. And I thought the tree kind of appreciated that. It's sort of in a new place and it's trying to work it out. So it was kind of fun. And I thought, that's a kind of nice way to relate to the tree. I just take music out and slows my day down, play with the tree. And I've been checking in with it every day. Yeah, so I want to say that. And then the other thing I started thinking about long ago, I was in the islands off Papua New Guinea in the north side of the Coral Sea. And I was the guest of the chief of the village, through no fault of my own. I just happened to know somebody who was a good friend of his and who's an artist. And but everything, there was no power, there was no anything there. But they had a kind of the ancient gift cycle, the Kula cycle was still going, and that was a remarkable thing. And I just thought I'd just mention it a tiny bit, where I was taken into, the hut the chief's sister's son was going to be the next chief, because it was a matrilineal culture, so that's how it went. And so it was also his obligation to take me around and swan me around and things. And although the chief would come and talk to me, the old chief would come and talk to me sometimes, but they had these bits of jewelry, and there were armbands, and there were neck plates with tiny red shells around them. The armbands were big white shells, and they were this hugely important thing. They were the most valuable thing in the village, worth more than a house and things like that. And what you had to do with your valuable piece of jewelry was you had to get a crew of people in a canoe and go off trading. And you had to go in this very ritualized way, you had to go north with one of them and south with the other. And you would go with one, with say your armbands, I think went north, can't remember really. But, in your canoe, and you waited till the weather was good, and you went to the next island in the chain, and then you handed over, you had a trading partner who was probably a chief or something there, and you handed over your armband. And there was a lot of thing about how, there's a lot of theatre about this, of course, on the beach. Of, look, we are giving you this most valuable thing, and you couldn't accept anything in return for it, though. And then when you got the armband, you could have it for about a few months, but if you had it for more than that, people would start to get a bad reputation, so you had to send it on to the next island around the chain. And eventually it, or something of equal value and power, inner force, would come back to the original person who sent it off. And there'd be things going clockwise and anti-clockwise around the island chain. There's about 16 islands in the chain. So it was a kind of amazing, strange thing where the most valuable thing in the village had to be given away. You couldn't, and as well, they would take other things to trade, whatever they wanted to trade, tools or yams or whatever, And so the trade would happen, but it wasn't about this. And it's a very complicated thing, and there's like a lot of there's a lot of maneuvering and social stigma and things like that if you don't do it and stuff like that. But I thought it was remarkable, and I still think it's remarkable. It was written up by Malinowski, an anthropologist in the about 100 years ago, and still a very interesting thing called the Kula ring. So I just wanted to say that, and in a way that the whole island had that quality of, they just put up strangers and very hospitable and so on. So and I wanted to read. The other thing I want to read here is this is Denise Levertov's poem called "The Gift." Just when you seem to yourself nothing but a flimsy web of questions. Just when you seem to yourself nothing but a flimsy web of questions, you are given the questions of others to hold. In the emptiness of your hands, you are given the questions of others to hold in the emptiness of your hands. Songbird eggs that can still hatch if you keep them warm. Butterflies opening and closing themselves in your cupped palms, trusting you not to injure their scintillant fur, their dust. You are given the questions of others as if they were answers to all you ask. Yes, perhaps this gift is your answer. You're given the questions of others as if they were the answers to all you ask. Yes, perhaps this gift is your answer. Kind of nice run at Cohen study. And it's also the bits of sand, that we call the self, flying around the beach. So, the other couple of things about those islands is, I don't know, I got very sick while I was there, which happens often, just eating food and stuff, But I remember just drifting around in a canoe one day, and I went out in a canoe and then got really sick. I remember drifting around, people just keeping track of the canoe, and occasionally a head would appear over the side where people were fishing and diving, actually, and they'd check on me and then off they'd go. So it was kind of fun, being sick, being somewhat delirious. It's a good place to be delirious. And they also lived where the kind of forces were different. Like I remember the old chief starting to explain the winds. It was really important to explain the directions of the winds, and the wind that blew to the north, and the north wind that you took when you went south on your voyages. It's great, and they had these great canoes. But the most important and beautiful thing was, he said, the splashboards of the canoes, which were on both sides, and they're just a big board, but elaborately carved in sort of Melanesian, you've seen them in Polynesian things, style. And the chief was famous for being a great artist of carving the canoe prows, and that was the great thing to do. And he said, he showed me a canoe prow. He said, it had this word called water in their local language. It was called, and he was using that word, sopa. And he said, there's no water in that. There's no flow, there's no Tao in that. And you could see it was all awkward, and they'd just done by the rules. And so it was rather wonderful. They had this wonderful conception of art and all. He did tell me, one of the other things that it's probably worth remarking, he said that I shouldn't talk to the bats. Which I thought was rather wonderful, because he said they were the messengers from the dark chief, the rival chief up in the mountains. He was the chief down on the ocean with the canoes, and there was a dark chief who was a magician also up in the mountains. And you'd find bats following you. They're just like trying to get information for the other chief. Don't talk to them. So it was rather wonderful. So in fact, I didn't talk to the bats. Although I feel I can talk to the bats around here if I wish. So yeah. So I want to sit a bit and just feel what it's like just to be in the now. Really, yeah. It's an amazing thing. Yeah. Amazing thing to have what we have, to have this without closing our hands on it, because it's always with us and we can't get away from. The flowers on the dead tree cliff, the flowers are always in bloom.